So this room there's a lot of history back here. It's been many things. It was my office for 15 years. We got moved into the classroom once the fire marshal said no more occupant space back here. This is a electrical room, not an office. So there are extraterrestrial back here.
I like it.
My name is Jack Schmidt, and I have been at Jesuit High School for 31 years. I was living in Hemet, California, 1995. I was unemployed. I reached out to my cousin Judy Werner, who worked here at Jesuit. She was the treasurer. And I asked her to send me the classified ads because I think I wanted to relocate to Oregon. And she says, well, what do you know how to do? And I said, worked in construction. I said, done landscaping. I can fix stuff. And she goes, okay, I'll call you back later. So she called me back about an hour later and she said, get a resume together and mail it to 9000 Southwest Beaverton Hillsdale Highway. Attention, Father Bill Hayes. And I did. And she called me back and she says, now I don't want anybody to know that we're related. But if you get a call, just act like we don't know each other. Judy and Claude were amazing. I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. They let me live with them for as long as I needed. And I drove in and I interviewed with Father Hayes, Dick Edrose, and Mike Sandy, who was the facilities plant manager at the time. He wanted to move into and begin and start the IT company or IT division, which Jesuit did not have. And so I got hired, and then the job of plant manager opened up, and Father Hayes offered me $7 an hour if I would take the position, and I agreed. I think the first thing I noticed walking down the hallways during break, and the kids would actually open the door for you, or they would say, excuse me. They banged their backpack into you. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. And I wasn't used to that. I was used to just being, disrespected and like, where are these kids from? So that's probably my first memory and beginning story of arriving at Jesuit. So I think I love Jesuit as much as I do because, first, it's a Catholic institution. My mom was very, very, very strict and still is devout Catholic woman, and in fact, she used to make us kneel in the living room and say the rosary, and we thought we were being punished, but it wasn't punishment. It was her teaching us of our faith. And then when I went to catechism down in California, we were almost kind of taught to be afraid of the nuns and the priests because they would slap your fingers with a ruler or they would bark at you. And my biggest dream was to always have been an altar boy, and I never got that chance, but my cousin Stephen, who's the same age as I am, it's my dad's sister's son, Stephen got to be an altar boy, and his dad was actually a sacristan and got to go up and do the readings. And I asked my mom, I said, why can't we do that? And she didn't have an answer for me. So then moving to Jesuit and learning and becoming part of the community, my favorite thing to do is on the weekends I come in and I go to the chapel and I make sure the candle's lit. And I make sure that the holy water has holy water in it, the dippers when you go in to do the sign of the cross. And I think this is my chance to in my head, be the altar boy I always wanted to be, even though I'm an old man. And the people and the community is, I go home to an empty house. I live alone. I'm single, don't have pets, don't have anything. I love plants. I have a beautiful yard and a garden, but then I have my family here. So I go home, I sleep, and then I come home to my family. So Jesuit is basically my second home. And it brings me joy and happiness, and the people I work with are wonderful to me. I can't imagine spending these past 30 years anywhere else. I mean, it's been amazing. The first person I connected with at Jesuit was Jeff Wood. And he said, let me show you how to do the garbage outside. And we had an old red Chevy truck, and he took me around the entire campus and showed me every garbage can that needed to be emptied every day. And I thought, what? And from then on, we became closer and closer and closer. And I can honestly say he's the best friend I could imagine ever having. We've gotten into huge, enormous, terrible fights where it started in here and it went down the hallway, and the F-bombs were dropping all the way through the kitchen and into the faculty lunchroom. And I thought that this is it. Somebody's gonna hit somebody. And we walked away, and the next couple days later, we were friends again. And that's one of the topics that he and I will talk about, is that we can be mad at each other for 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes, it's like it never happened. So that's, I think, a really good sign of a good friendship and a bond that will be there forever. So he makes me kind of sad when I say that I'm retiring and moving back to the desert, and he'll say, "Oh yeah, no, they've reached their population limit. They're not allowing any more people to move down there. I've got an apartment out at my house." He goes, "We'll remodel it and you can live out there." And he's bringing up all these different scenarios to keep me here. And I said, "Jeff, we're 3 hours apart. It's that easy." "I don't like the desert." And I said, "Well, I'll come back up here then." Just it's the most wonderful. I mean, I could be just as mad as can be at him, and it's like, why am I wasting all this energy of being mad? And I go, "Hey, what are you doing? You want to go to lunch?" "Okay." You go to lunch. So that's my friend Jeff. Okay, so what I'm the most proud of is, and this was a while back, it gave me the most joy and warmth, and it wasn't really that big of a deal, but to me it was a ginormous thing. Jesuit, back in the older days, we always kind of, we're self-funded, so we struggle to raise money, give teachers raises, build buildings, do whatever. So I had met with a gal from Portland General Electric, and she was having a rebate program if we got rid of all the old ballasts. And I don't know, you weren't here yet, but Xavier and Ignatius, which used to be Perry and Schulteis, the lights that hung in the classrooms, if the ballasts went out and got hot, they would leak this black oil onto the student desks, and I'd get this phone call, "We got a leaker in room 5. Okay, I'm on my way." And I updated all of the old ballasts. Full disclosure, they did not contain PCBs. And updated the lighting. It cost me $125,000. And I asked Dick Gedrose, Father Hayes, and Michelle from PGE to meet me in the Bill Hunt boardroom. And she presented us with a check for $95,000 as a rebate for doing what we did. And it was, for me, the most proud moment, I think. You know, there have been exciting moments and joyous moments, but seeing that look on their face, like, oh man, you know, we're gonna have to pay $125,000 to do this dang light project that Jack wants to do. And then I told them there'd be a little bit of a rebate, but they didn't expect what they got. And so it was, yeah. So my relationship with Father Hayes was very cut and dry in the beginning. It was, he would give an order and I would do the task. And there was one year when he had stepped down from being the president and Dick Gedrose had stepped in, and but Dick left Father Hayes in charge, and I was doing a pavement project out here on 91st Street. And I told everybody that they were not allowed to drive on the gravel. And then I saw Father McTighe and his walker coming from the east parking lot, and I thought, oh man, I can't make him, you know, do his little scooter walker thing all the way from the east side of the campus. So I called the paving company. I asked them if one little Toyota Camry could drive on the gravel, and they said, absolutely. So Father Hayes saw that. He called me into his office, and he was livid. He goes, you're so wishy-washy. He goes, you're making me people not drive on it, and then you're letting people drive on it. He goes, what is the rule? And I said, Father McTighe can hardly walk. I'm making an exception for him. Well, that's not right. And then I became elevated, and he became more elevated. And I turned around and I says, I'm going to have to leave before this conversation gets worse. And he's kind of hollered at me, and he said, don't you walk away from me. And I left. And the next day we met up again. And from that day on, our relationship was more like this than this. And I felt so comfortable being his friend, yet working for him. As the years went on and he was kind of not invited back to the building committee meeting or different projects that were happening on campus, he would always call, and I'd see his name pop up on the phone, and I'd think, oh no, what did I do now? So he'd say, and this is my Father Hayes impression, well, Jack, Bill Hayes here. Hi, Father Hayes. Well, can you come over to my office? Need to talk to you. I'd walk over and just shaking in my shoes, and I'd get there and he'd say, close the door behind you. And I'd think, uh-oh, what's happening? And he goes, have a seat. And I'd sit down, and I just thought, oh, I could feel the sweat dripping down my neck. And he'd say, how's the project going? I'd say, what project? And we were building a Loriaga at the time. And he says, oh, Science Center. I said, oh, phew. I go, it's going great. He goes, what would you like to know? And then we would elaborate on questions and topics and budget and are we on time and, you know, what's happening? And Skanska did it, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And our relationship built after that. And then when they decided to move him up to Spokane, he requested that Jeff Wood and myself pack up his belongings and drive them up in the Suburban. He didn't want anybody else to touch his stuff. And so we actually moved him into his room. Kim Randalls flew up with him, and we drove. It was my first time through the gorge, and my only time. Can you believe it? 30 years? Yeah. So Father Hayes and I had a really, really good relationship. One of the things that John Gladstone pulled me aside one day, and we had our Wednesday afternoon meetings in his conference room, which is now Tom's little man cave. So when that was a conference room, John Gladstone's office was right next door. And he said, Jack, can you stay back after the meeting? And I said, sure. And he said, I have to say that I look forward to your Wednesday meetings. And I said, why? He goes, you and Jeff, I don't know what you guys do, but to hear Ken Foley laugh and literally belly laugh, he goes, I can hear his chair bouncing. He's laughing so hard. Nobody gets to see that. He goes, you two are so lucky and so fortunate. And we were. He would ask us to come up to his house and fix a wire that he couldn't figure out on his TV, or one speaker's not working, or my garbage disposal is stuck. And we were honored to go up there. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.